In this video, I'm going to talk about CIS18A Lab 3 Exercise 11. This exercise requires to use the ternary operator. You are not to create the example program. You can run it to test it, but the actual requirement is for us to create the bank loan application. So our program needs to entail the requirement for someone to qualify for the loan. Then the criteria is that they have to be employed for at least 2 years and their income has to be at least $60,000 per year. And after we create the program, we can test it for someone who've been working for 2 years and earns $50,000. Our program needs to contain the ternary operator, class, variable, and appropriate data type. So to start, what we have is we need to have the user input, so we need to import Java util package. And as you've seen in Lab 2, we already utilized this package in Lab 2 to create the 21 years and over program. So in this particular program, we will ask the user to input their years of employment and their income. So we want to make sure that that package is imported. First, I have a class called Loan1, and under this class I have two variables or two members, and they are years employment, which is going to contain the number of years that they're employed, and yearly income, which is going to contain the amount of money that they're making each year. Second class I have here is called bank loan, and under bank loan I have the main method. Now, I included Java IO exception. This is going to be utilized for input validation in my program. Next, I create user loan object, and that will be under a loan1 type. Here we have the constructor for the object. So we constructed the object at this line. Next, we would have additional variables for the number of years and the yearly salary. For the input, since earlier we have the Java util package imported, we can create SC object under the scanner type, so that way we can record the user input. Then for our prompt, this is to prompt the user. For our prompt, we would ask the user to enter the number of years at their employment. Then next, we would start the condition to check the input for the years. So here what I have is I have the if statement, and in this we would use the object SC, and has next int is going to be utilized to make sure that that's going to be an integer that's going to be inputted associated with that object. Then after that, what we would do is we would store this into the years of employment, and that's part of the user loan object. And as the user input for the next line, it will clear the input buffer. In the else condition, I want to tell the user if they input the wrong value. For example, if they input a letter instead of a number, then it would say invalid input, try again. So this section right here is what we're doing is we're creating the input validation for the user. We're making sure that the years that they input, the value is going to be integers. And if they didn't input the integer, then we would give them a message that it is invalid and try again. Now, in the next line here, we simply just have the system exit. So after we have the section for our employment years, we would start the prompt for the yearly income. So on this line, I simply prompt the user, enter the yearly income. Next, again, what we will do is we're going to repeat the process to make sure that we input validate for the yearly income. So if they put in the letters, right, or string instead of numbers, then it's going to tell them that they would have to try again because it's invalid. So we would use an if statement, and since we have the SC object created from the scanner, then we would have has next int, and notice that this is for integers. Then the input that they have, if it's integers, it's going to be stored into the yearly income, and that's part of the user loan object. Okay. And that we have next line here. So we'll maximize the capability of the Java IO exception by implementing the condition for input. So if the user input the wrong thing, then they will be prompted that it's invalid input and the program needs to be ran again. So in the else condition, that's going to check, and so if it's not in the criteria, if they don't input in the criteria as numbers, if they input letters or strings, then it's going to prompt them that's an invalid input and try again. Then our next section is for qualifications, and here we state that the years need to be 2, the income needs to be 60,000. And that's the minimum qualification for the loan. Now, in the next part, what we need to do is we need to check against the user input. And in this part, we use the ternary operator, which is the question mark here, to see if the input is actually qualified based on what we state as the minimum requirement. So here we use a Boolean type, and we have the variable year that was previously declared. So now basically this section is checking to see if the years of employment is greater and equal to years. If it's greater and equal to 2, if that's true, then they would be qualified. Now, if that's false, that will be the else condition is the second part. If it's false, if it doesn't check true here, then it's going to go to the next part. So we want to check for the year. It needs to be greater and equal to 2. And then again, we want to check for the yearly income. That needs to be greater and equal to $60,000. So here what you can do is you can use the operator in place of the if-else statement. The first part following the operator, that will be for the true condition, and then the second part will be for the false, which is the else. Then next we have another if statement, because in order to qualify for the loan, they have to be working for at least 2 years, and they have to be making at least $60,000 or more. So we want to make sure that we include both of the criteria. So we would say if year, and we would want to use the AND operator here, and income, then we would say congratulations, you're eligible for the loan. So if they meet the minimum requirement, if they meet the minimum requirement of 2 or more, 60,000 or more, both of those have to be true. In this case, when we're using the AND operator, then they would be eligible for the loan. Else, if they don't meet both requirements, then they would not be qualified for the loan. So if the user input a higher number of years but a lower income, then they will not be qualified for the loan. So it will go to the else statement, and it will prompt the user that, sorry, you did not meet the qualification for the loan. And that will conclude our entire code for the program. So once I have created once I've written the code, I can go ahead and click File, Save As. And since I have the first class as Loan 1, so I will go ahead and name it loan1.java. And then I would open up my command line, program written and saved. Then I will go into command line. In command line, I want to make sure that I'm in the directory where my program is saved. Then next, I will need to compile the program, so I will issue javac command and the file name. After I compile the program successfully, I will go ahead and run the program using my second class name. So here, as you can see, it asks me for the number of years for your employment. That will be 2. And enter the yearly income. We will check for $50,000. And it will say, sorry, we did not meet the qualifications. Now, if we run the program again, and we want to put in 2 and $70,000, then it will say that we are eligible for this loan. Now let's say that we run the program again and we want to see if our input validation works. So instead of a number, I want to put in a letter, and it shows that there is invalid input, try again. And I can go again to check. So let's say I put in the right year, but my income, I put in a letter, and it shows that my input is invalid, try again. So in this program, what we have done is we also included the input validation to make sure that we notify the user when the wrong key is pressed.